What is happening, people? Welcome to Gooner Down Under TV, and today we're deep into that international break. Thought it would be the perfect time to just recap Arsenal's season so far, break down each player's performance in the league, give them a little rating as well. And we don't have any games to review. We got our game against Chelsea to preview later in the week. So I thought it would be the perfect time for some reflection. As well, while you're here, like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all of that good stuff. And if you are into that EAFC 24 or FIFA, whatever game you want to call it, type of content, head out to my second channel, Gooner Down Under Gaming. Thought I'd just separate it from this channel so I can focus on both channels a little bit more, get at least 2 videos out a week on each, and as well, at least you're not flushed with sort of videos that you don't want to see. So I will leave the description in the link. I will leave the link in the description below. So if you're into that, go and check it out and do all of that good stuff over there as well. Now, I'm not going to take any longer with this video. It's been over a minute. We need to get into it. We need to recap our players. But just before, I want to sort of talk about Arsenal overall. And it's a bit of a weird start. Yes, we're second in the league, first in points, I guess, if you want to call it. But our performances haven't been sort of to the standard we've set last season. Some fans are getting frustrated by it. And it's hard because, it is early in the league and I feel like it can go 2 ways. Either we've matured and we've learned how to pick up points early in the season without having to go all guns blazing and then gassing out at the end, or we're sort of riding our luck a bit. We've changed our system, and at any point it can go all to crap. It could be one of those things where, it's not sustainable, a lot like sort of Tottenham last year. Not saying we're playing like them, but just, they were picking up points, but everyone could see it wasn't going to last long, and then it just imploded. Now, let's hope it's not that. Let's hope it is the maturing aspect, and we are just picking up points, and let's say January, February, March is when we really ramp it up for a nice big title run, instead of tipping our form at the end of the season. Hopefully. But, it's still early. For now, let's just enjoy being second. Let's talk about each player and move on. So, we're going to start off with Jakub Kivior. Hasn't played much. We're going to start with people who necessarily haven't played the most, or people coming in off the bench. And then we're going to get into our more starting 11 players later on. But with Kivior, started one game against Fulham, so not the best game to start. Came in off the bench as well. He has been playing left back a lot, and I think as left back, it would be okay if we had a more traditional right back bombing the flanks, and he could sort of step into a back three. But that's not really the case. Ben White, sort of a box-to-box right back, isn't always bombing up, but sometimes gives support to Saka. So we do require our left back to be aiding the attack quite a bit, and Kivior just isn't there yet. Has the strength, has the physicality, the pace, is decent on the ball, but just not good enough yet. So, not really warranting of any starts in my opinion, but hopefully he can get there. For this season, I'll give him a standard 5. Was decent, nothing crazy, and we sort of just move. Next, Jurrien Timber. Don't we all wish he was back? In pre-season, I think was the best of our new signings. Looked better than Declan Rice, better than Havertz, and just made the game look so easy. Glides on the pitch, so athletic as well, and just elegant on the ball. And there's sort of talks that he might be coming back around December, January, which would be huge for our title run. Initially when I heard it was that ACL, I thought he'd be out for the whole season, but apparently he's going to be back earlier than expected, which would be huge. Because similar to Tomiyasu, they can both sort of play anywhere in that back four, and they're just utility players who give us amazing depth, and we need them both in case one of them sort of picks up a niggling injury. The other one can be there to take over. But Jurrien Timber, can't rank him based on his preseason or Community Shield game. So I'm going to give him a 6 for that half of football. Just to be nice, and because, he was so good to our defense, and I feel like we miss him so much. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt, give him a 6. Tomiyasu, I'm going to give an 8. I think for his role as a utility player off the bench, always comes in, does a job, is solid, doesn't make a mistake, put a foot wrong. I think he's always reliable and dependable. And like I said, whether it's centre back, right back, left back, can come in, do a job, never complains, and he's absolutely perfect. And I think it's a player every team needs. Someone who can just come in, shore things up, especially 70th minute, maybe Zinchenko's lacking a bit defensively. Tomiyasu comes on and just makes everything a little bit calmer and more solid. Now, moving on to our more backup midfield options, Jorginho. I'm not going to be able to get that mistake against Tottenham out of my head. I think I would probably give him a 7 because, typically he is reliable, dependable as well, similar to Tomiyasu off the bench. But that mistake against Tottenham was huge, And it wasn't even one where it was a forced error. He had all the time in the day to make a pass and just kept holding the ball and kept holding it. And Tottenham dispossessed him, finally tracked him down, and they go 2-2. So because of that, I'm going to give him a 5. I think that's the game you don't want to make a mistake in. Maybe them and against City at the moment, I guess. But it was too costly of a mistake. A game we needed to win as well. So I'm going to give him a 5. I think there was a game maybe against Lons, which I'm not pointing in here, where he did actually the same thing. Lucky they didn't expose us, but we need him to learn his lessons. Typically, like I said, he is dependable. Not the fastest, not the most athletic, not the tallest, but he's just always in the right position and reads the game really well. We need that more often. So I'm going to give him a 5. I'm also going to give Smith Rowe a 5 as well. Just in the league, hasn't done enough, hasn't played enough. I would like to see him come in more, maybe for Odegaard when Odegaard's not having the best game. Come in, be a bit lively, try and carry, drive the ball and make an impact. But we haven't seen that yet. At least not enough. I think he's had 2 sub appearances. It was probably a couple minutes each, so not enough. He was sort of that huge player a couple seasons ago where we thought he was going to break through. He got 10 goals off the bench, I think 12 in the league, which is really good. And if we can get back to him firing like that off the bench, that would really help us, especially in games where it's a bit of a stalemate and we need someone to come in and make an impact. So I'm going to give him a 5. Now, Vieira. This one's hard because I probably, like Tomiyasu, would have given him an 8 for his role off the bench, making an impact. But I think against Tottenham, he did get bullied, overrun, and I think it showed his flaws. So I'm going to bump it down to a 7. Yeah, a lot of people sort of said he got subbed at halftime due to an injury. I think it was tactical. He just looked so out of place. It shows that, when a team is pressing him, when a midfield is physical, maybe we can't rely on him and Odegaard together. When it's sort of a team like Everton, which has no intention to attack at all and was willing to have everyone behind the ball, then that's sort of Vieira's time to shine. I think that's the perfect place to play him. And I think that is what we'll need to do moving forward. Against the more physical or even big 6 games, I don't think we can rely on him as being that number 8. But against the lower ranked teams where we know they're not going to attack, I think that might be an opportunity to have him help us break down teams. But in terms of a super sub as well, I thought he's been very good this season. Against Fulham, came in, contributed to 2 goals straight away and just absolutely lifted us. I think there's a few other games as well off the bench, made an impact, got some assists along the way. And I think that's what we want to see of him. He was a big signing, 35, 40 mil. Last season, we allowed him to sort of settle in. This season, we want to see that performance come up. I don't mind him sort of coming in as a super sub. I think that's fine. I just don't want to see it off the right wing as well. I want to see him in that midfield where he can get in the game, on the ball, and make an impact. And I think he's, yes, he had that game against Tottenham, but he's making the right moves, and that's really good to see. So I'd give him a 7 so far. Now, Reece. Probably the player on the bench who's most deserving of some more minutes, but never really gets it. Yes, Arteta gave him that contract, but it's clear he doesn't trust him. Anytime Saka's out in a big game, it's never Nelson stepping in. And I think it should be. He's put in a lot of good performances. He's always made an impact when he's coming in. And I think it's a little bit harsh. But if we keep winning, I'm not going to really complain. I don't care who plays as long as the team wins. But I think on a personal level, he should be playing more. I'll give him a 6. Hasn't really had enough opportunity to really boost it higher than that. But every time he comes on, even in a little cameo, you see his worth. So I'm giving Reece a 6. Nketiah, is it harsh to give him a 6 as well? He started 7 games in the league this season, so he's played a lot of games. It's hard. It's hard because I think at the start of the season, Nketiah looked good. He was spinning players more. He got in a couple goals. I think he scored against Nottingham Forest that first game. And that's usually what happens. When Jesus is out, we have Nketiah step in. I think he does good at the start, and then he just tails off. I don't know if it's due to complacency. I don't know if his physicality isn't there to do it over consistent periods of time, or his mental state. I don't know what it is, but he just seems to tail off. Things he does do well, we all know: press, run his socks off. He's always on the other team, causing them issues off the ball. And yes, a lot of people sort of say every player should be doing that, but we know they don't. We know they don't. That's why we always pick out Nketiah for doing it, but we need to see more. 7 starts in the league, 2 goals as a striker just isn't enough. And that's why, we all sort of say we need a new striker coming in, an Ivan Toney, an Osherman, Evan Ferguson, because we just know Nketiah can't be getting those goals for a consistent period. To give him a little bit of respect, or just like to ease a little bit of pressure, we haven't been creating enough. So, a lot of his role is to sort of finish goals at the back post, near post, whatever fox in the box approach. We haven't been creating enough. Some of that's onto him. He doesn't link up our play as well as a Jesus, but we also do need our wingers, midfielders to create more. This hasn't always been a topic forever. Back in the day, wingers and midfielders used to create more, and we need to see that now. But I'm going to give Nketiah a 6. Could be a 7, maybe, on a different day. But just for the sake of it, we're going to say 6. Trossard. Would I be a hypocrite if I give him a 7? Because I think last couple games, he just hasn't looked at it at all. He seems like he's still carrying a knock, or he's carrying that hamstring injury. It hasn't looked like he's recovered fully. He doesn't look tight, sharp with the ball like he typically does. I call him sort of Santi Cazorla on the wings, because usually he's very technical, can play with both feet, get out of tight spaces. The ball never goes too far away from him. But recently, just hasn't been able to get into the game. Early parts of the season and pre-season was absolutely fantastic, so it's sort of a mixed campaign. I think, especially since we have Martinelli back now, we need to rest Trossard till he's 100%, because I think he's the best finisher in our team, and I think we need him, especially as a player who can come in and make a change, or can rotate and still not drop off that performance. So I'll give him a 7, but I want to start seeing him back to his best, because if that is, we have a whole another threat in our arsenal. See what I did there? Okay, now we're moving on to the starters. Our goalkeepers, we've had 4 games each, so it's sort of, we don't really have a number 1 so far, although we all know Raya is sort of taking over that spot. But for me, I'm giving Ramsdale a 6, and I'm giving Raya... Wait, what did I say? I'm giving Ramsdale a 7, and I'm giving Raya a 6. Raya just hasn't impressed me. I don't think he's done much at all. Maybe 1 save against Tottenham, was it? But his kicking has been shaky in games. Yes, when he has all the time in the day, he can make out a pass. But when teams press on him, especially, that's what's going to happen later on in the Champions League. It's what's going to happen a lot during this title run. He does look a bit sus. Maybe that's nerves. Maybe that's, learning a new system where players are. But so far, he has looked shaky. Against City, we could have easily been exposed. Alvarez ran him down, should have even scored. And so I'm going to give him a 6. Ramsdale, to be honest, Maybe some saves you could have said he could have done better. But he's the one that got us to this dance. He was team of the season goalkeeper last season, and I think he should be starting. And even this season, I don't think he's played poorly. I think he's been pretty good, and I think pretty harshly dropped. But that's enough because I've sort of talked about that enough this season. Now, back four, this is where we get into some of those higher ratings. I'm going to start by saying Zinchenko. I'm going to give him a 7. Um, you know, it's been okay. Don't think he's had any game where he's sort of completely controlled it and really, cut through the other team and taken us to that next level. He's had some decent games, looked good on the ball. I'd like to see him get a little bit more on the ball and make those cutting edge passes like we sort of saw last season. But 7, respectable, done his job. Let's hope he gets better over the season as well. Ben White, I think he's criminally underrated by me as well. I probably don't talk about him enough on this channel, but I'm going to give him an 8. He's sort of Tomiyasu as a starter, always dependable, always does his job. I compare him to Monreal a lot, just in the sake that he's going to have a solid game. He's going to be there, he's going to do his job, he's going to win headers, he's going to, make the other opposition's winger have a long day, and then occasionally support Saka, overlapping runs, come in with a goal or assist here and there. Not necessarily enough with those more attacking fullbacks where they're sort of getting goals and assists every third, fourth game, but he does it enough to where the sort of questions the defense. So I'm going to give him an 8, and I'm going to give both of these guys a 9. Yes, you could say Saliba's probably been a little bit better, but I think as a partnership, they have been flawless, and I think they're the best centre-back pairing in the league. I've been saying it, I'm going to continue to say it. I think they are the best centre-back, and if they can stay healthy for a long period of time, we have got something really special in our back line here. So I'm giving both a 9. Don't want to talk about them too much because they're just the best centre-backs in the league. That's all I'm going to say. They have everything. Now, moving into that midfield, I'm going to leave him to last. Probably a lot of you want me to give him a 2, but we'll see. Declan Rice, I'm going to give him a 9 as well. I'm going to give him a 9 just because whether he's playing the 8 or the 6 always makes an impact, hasn't had one bad game, and has looked absolute quality. In pre-season, I actually was a little bit worried because he didn't look that convincing to me. Wasn't really making a lot of tackles, looked out of place. But, he did join us late. I think it was just a bit of fitness that he needed to catch up on. And since then, since the season has started, he has looked impeccable. Definitely giving him a 9. Odegaard, I'm going to give him 1 notch down and give him an 8. Probably tossing up between a 7 or an 8 for Odegaard. I think in those bigger games, he hasn't made the impact that we want, but also our whole team isn't playing the way we want them to. We're not sort of playing that expansive football, and I think a lot of that we need to sort of unlock Odegaard. A lot of people sort of give similar stick to Ozil in the past where maybe he wasn't contributing enough, but if it's a player who relies purely on, a team being on the front foot, being aggressive, having wingers run off him, having the striker make good runs and feeding them, I feel like if we're not in that situation, what do you really expect an attacking, 10 or attacking 8 to do? I think he's been solid. He's been a captain, sort of things we're giving Havertz the penalty, etc. I think it just brings us all together. And so for that, I'm going to give him an 8. Now, moving on to Partey, tough one. It's a tough one. Because I think if he ever plays that 6 role, he's probably an 8, 9, 10 even sometimes. But, he played right back a lot of the season, a lot of the early parts of the season before getting injured. Looked okay, nothing great. And I get it, Zinchenko was out. Arteta probably wanted someone to invert in, so he put Partey in there. I just don't want to see that anymore, though. I want to see, these 3, this is terrible, these 3 in that midfield. Partey, Rice and Odegaard need to be this midfield trio moving forward. Might even cut me trying to do all this out of the video, but we'll see. But based on what we've seen so far, I'll give Partey a 7. Played a different position, didn't look great in it, was okay. He then came on against City and we started seeing some of his levels. Beautiful pass to Tomiyasu. He can do that, especially from deep positions, pinging it all around the park. He's criminally underrated in that. And I think he can really elevate this midfield if we move on with him in it. Now, Havertz. I'm going to give him a 6. A 6. He did sort of hold off the ball, played off to Martinelli, got an assist against City. Is that overrated? Yes, I'm with you. But I'm also going to add in his defensive work. I think as a left-sided 8, we need someone who does both ends really good. And with Partey being out of that midfield and Havertz being in, I think he does that role better than a Vieira, better than a Trossard, better than a Smith Rowe. He wins a lot of duels, he heads a lot of balls out of the penalty area for us, bails us out quite a bit in terms of defensive work, and so for that, I think that's underrated. Now, with Partey as a 6, Declan as an 8, Declan is a whole nother level ahead of that. Maybe 7 levels ahead defensively. So I think that's something that we can really push on from. But I think Havertz still does get underrated in that aspect. But attacking wise has added maybe 2 to 3 moments the whole season, which is not enough. 1 goal, 1 assist, dodgy goal. So, can't ride on it too much. I'm going to be nice and say a 6, although it probably could be a 5. And if you say 2 or 3, I understand what you're saying too. Now, last 3, what we need to... This is the attack we need moving forward, and we need to unlock these guys. Early in the season, I think they were playing quite conservative. This whole control, ball retaining hype. I think we need to see more of them on the front foot, questioning the fullbacks and just driving. Now, I'm going to give Martinelli a 7 because I think from what we've seen, a lot of it was that sort of conserved play style. Only against City did we see him really bombing on, and I want to see that more. Saka, I'm going to give an 8. Hasn't played to his highest standards, but has picked up the goals, picked up the assists. And I guess that is the end game of football, as the end job of a winger is to just be productive. But I do want to see him make a little bit more of an impact. And Jesus, I'll give him a 7 as well. Been injured a lot, hasn't had a lot of time to really play. Yeah, played 1 game on the left wing where I didn't think he was great. Played on the right wing against City where I thought he did really good, and I want to see him there anytime Saka's out. Which probably contradicts my Nelson statement, but that's fine. We move on, don't even think about it. Striker against United came on, had a good goal, but we need to start seeing him more in that central role, or on the right, doesn't matter, but we need to see him more is the main point. He needs to stay healthy, he needs to get in the end of things, and he needs to start contributing a little bit more. For now, I'll give him a 7. I guess if we're sort of recapping everyone, I might as well give Arteta a ranking as well, and I'll give him an 8. He's sort of teaching our players how to pick up results when they're not playing the best. And I think that's a big thing. I think sometimes maybe people take it a little bit too far, but he's done, we're not playing the best. People are complaining about Havertz, the system, etc. But we're still, joint first in points, second goals scored. I think you can't really ask for much better than that. Jorginho doesn't make a mistake. We're first. I guess also it's ifs, buts, and maybes, but still, you got to take it into account. I'll give him an 8. Has been solid, still room for improvement like the whole squad. But those are sort of my player ratings and manager ratings. Let me know what you think of them down below. Make sure to give your rankings as well. If you disagree, let me know why. And once again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all of that nice stuff. You know what to do, and I will see you in that next video. Peace.